Hi there. Namaste. Welcome and thank you for being here, for both yourself and for joining me. Today we're going to be talking about the koshas, or the subtle energy bodies that comprise our beings. Everybody has them. There are 5. We have our physical body, all the way to our casual body and our bliss body. Each one of them interacts with the world around us, and we interact with the world around us through them. Each are necessary, and we'll explore them. So the first kosha, and the most obvious, is our physical. Our physical body is comprised of our flesh and our bones. It's our muscles, our hair, and all of the organs that we need inside of us. This is the most dense energy, and it interacts the most heavily with other physical body things. It is our bridge to the world around us, and is the most important from most perspectives in terms of health, and is the one that most people feel the most comfortable interacting with. The koshas, or sheaths, were first mentioned in the Upanishads, a time when people were very used to interacting with all of the bodies, the subtle and casual. And at times even the physical body was not quite understood or really fully known yet. So the other bodies were much more developed. Now in this age, we spend much more time with our physical body. When we're in our bodies, when we're fully in our bodies, we can feel a difference, because the movement that you have through muscle memory is when you're truly in your body. When you act without your mind, without having to remember something, and your body can take over and move for you. When we focus on seeing inside of our hands, feeling the joints and muscles as they move, or feeling the bones inside of our bodies. And usually when we think about it, the first ones we'll think about are the ones that maybe hurt a little bit. But when we bring our attention to these parts of our bodies, we can really activate this in our bodies. For a lot of us who spend all day at a computer, or don't put our active consciousness into our bodies by going for a run, by doing exercise or dance, we can disconnect from this body wisdom. One of my favorite ways is dancing. I find that when I dance, my body can take over, and it moves without being needed to ask it or share what to do next. It just moves for me. This is a great example of being in your physical body. The physical body is the Annamaya kosha. The Annamaya kosha, it's made up with two, which is Ana and physical, and Maya, which is illusion. And the reason we have the word illusion in there is to remind us again that while the physical body is here in this moment, and it is true for this moment and from this perception of our indriyas or senses, it is subject to change and eventually to disappearing entirely, in that it is a momentary thing that can be seen different from perspectives and can change entirely with time and with influence. So through the physical body, we care for the physical body by doing things like getting enough exercise and drinking water and eating properly, by putting positive food-based Annamaya Kosha into our Annamaya Kosha, then we create a healthy Annamaya Kosha. And this is the same with all of the bodies. What we bring into it is what we get out of it. So keeping that in mind and moving to our next one, which is the Pranamaya Kosha. And the Pranamaya Kosha works with its root word, which is prana, or energy, the vitality of life. This is the energy that makes plants grow, that makes my breath come and fills my body with energy, makes my heart beat. And if babies are growing, it's that same energy that gives them life. So in some ways, you could say that like the sunlight in the air that moves the particles, when we breathe that in, that energy is there for us to harvest and use to power our own bodies. Our best way to practice and to experience this one, of course, is to just breathe, taking full, deep belly breaths and experiencing that full-bodied prana. And when we're breathing it in, knowing also that we're filling the space around us with this breath, and that this energy is not ending at our mouths, but extending outside of us as well, taking up space both within us and around us, and also interacting with others, which is to say, by spending time near plants, you're taking in the prana of the plants. By spending time near a dumpster, you're taking in prana from a dumpster. This is really important when we think about where we spend our time. Where is our prana coming from? The food that we eat has prana. Songs that are sung affect prana. Many things affect prana. Sunlight, flowing water, wind. The more energy that's in the prana, the more energy that we receive from that prana. And we can move that energy towards all sorts of different things, because that energy is directly usable to our body and our cells. So when we've come to a place where we're practicing our prana, consciously pulling in energy, filling our system and sending that energy into the places in our body where we need it most. No longer in our body necessarily, or in our mind, but focusing on the breath and feeling it move through our bodies, feeling it move outside of us, and feeling it move through the things around us. Then we start to really become in touch with pranamaya kosha. The next subtle body is our mano kosha, or our mind. Our mind is one of our favorite topics in yoga because so much of yoga comes down to controlling your mind. When we are controlling our mind, we are taking the reins to our emotions, our experiences, our perspective, and our perceptions. And this alone is so much of our day-to-day lives. More so, I would say, in some people's lives than perhaps their body or their prana. So we see the importance of our mano kosha and grasping our self-control of it, our mastery of our mano kosha. So within the mano kosha, we find emotion and thoughts, which in the words of wiser sages come through like clouds. When we are working on mastering, we can use dhyana to focus on a singular thing or space and bringing our attention back to it when we veer off and get distracted, and bringing our attention back to it when we get distracted. As well, to simply watch the clouds go by, allowing them to eventually come in and eventually go out just as easily, pulling ourselves back to that center point. When we do this, we start to realize that we are, in fact, able to control where our mind goes, in very much the same way that we're able to control our body. For instance, it may be very, very hard to keep running for 6 kilometers. But if we decide to keep moving our bodies, then it is possible to do. Very much the same with our mind. While the mind has its own habitual experiences and actions, we can also train it. And when we take a hold of our reins, our mastery, and train our mind, it will mold to our habits that we build. If we want our mind to immediately jump to kind, helpful, solution-based thinking, then we have to train it to do so. When we want our mind to jump to calmness and stillness and peace, then when we're frustrated or agitated, we must cultivate our minds to bring us there. It's just a matter of deciding to do it and then choosing to do it enough that your mind does it by itself. So a great way to get in touch with our Mana Kosha, Mana Maya Kosha right now is to take a moment and just watch your thoughts. And if nothing comes, that's great. If something comes, that's great. Now choose to think of a green turtle. Maybe you get an image. Maybe you get words. But the point is that you chose to think about that. And if you're holding that image in your mind, you're choosing to think about that. It's not your body that's experiencing a green turtle. And it's not your prana that's experiencing a green turtle. It's your mind. So that's also why this whole series is about jnana yoga, or yoga of the mind, which, in my opinion, is a very, very important part of yoga because it teaches us how to even practice yoga properly. When we become masters of the mind, it is easy to say that this is when we start to become true masters of yoga. Because all things are really a product of this taming the mind, to tame our actions, our body, to experience and tame our prana as well, to ask ourselves to make space and time in our lives to attempt and practice and try to access our higher joys and higher selves. Because truly we can use our mind to remind us of how to access these spaces and to come up with solutions and how to access these spaces. This is something that the mind gives us that other koshas don't necessarily. In more subtle forms, they do. The next kosha is the Vijnanamaya kosha, or the kosha of discernment. So the Vijnanamaya kosha is the kosha that allows us to make choices for our own benefit and the benefit of others. It is where we draw the lines of our experience and create our own suffering, or hopefully better experiences. But it's also our intuitive sheath. So this is where our intuition, or our spirit, our higher knowing or inner guru, can come to our rescue. It's the aspect of our being which is infinitely and intimately, deeply connected to others and to ourselves. It can help us through the process of most experiences because it comes to us so subtly that we would actually think that it's ourselves. Most people wouldn't discern it from the mind even. They would assume that this intuition, with this epiphany state, this compassion to others, is their own mind. But in fact, it is this higher knowing that is the Vijnanamaya Kosha, or the higher self. And of course, our last and our favorite is our Anandamaya Kosha, which is our bliss. And our bliss body is something that we experience in the best moments in life. The moments that take our breath away, where we stop for a moment and everything seems exactly as it should be. There's no wandering or wondering, needing or wanting. There's just perfect there-ness as we experience the bliss of existence. We are filled with a feeling of deep inner peace, freedom from thoughts or needs. And this is known as a superior state, comparable to nirvana or samadhi. Ultimately, all of the limbs of yoga are trying to get us to this state of bliss, where we feel full, we feel fulfilled. There's nothing more that we could ask for. Perhaps you find it in dance, perhaps you find it in song, perhaps you find it in your yoga practice. I know that when I wake up first thing and I'm feeling achy and sore and I reach up nice and high, it doesn't even need to be within my yoga practice. That feeling of that stretch is wonderful. Perhaps seeing a loved one, of completing success, finding the joy of playing as a child. These are all examples of our bliss body taking over and truly existing. This kosha, as well as the kosha beforehand, Vijnanamaya kosha, are our dream koshas. So they're the koshas that we use when we are in fantasy land. They're the koshas that come forward when we are imagining or dreaming deep at night, when we're sleeping. And we can feel our dreams running wild with all the things that we hope for and we want and we imagine and we call in. And it's the zest of life. When we find it, we hope to learn how to find it again. So if you would like, take a moment and come up with a couple of ways that you access your bliss body. And go ahead and write that in the comment section. I'd love to know. And it's always a good way to cement it into your consciousness of how you can access your bliss body. Thank you so much for joining me today. Have a wonderful few weeks. Namaste.